One gesture. Less than 2 seconds. That's all it takes to change how this entire scene reads. Everything else in this footage is built on stillness. Park Bo-gum sits against a wooden wall in a black suit and bow tie, and for most of the clip, his body barely moves. No sweeping gestures. No shift in posture. Just a man sitting quietly, framed tightly enough that the camera has nowhere else to look but his face and his hands. And that's exactly the point. This is OTP Cat, and we look at entertainment moments the way an editor looks at a page, not for what's loudest, but for what's easy to miss. At first glance, there's not much to describe. His hands rest together in front of him. His shoulders stay close to the wall. If you skimmed past this clip, you might assume nothing happens in it at all. But watch the hands specifically, and a different pattern appears. Fingers interlock. Then separate. Then tighten again. It's not a nervous tic exaggerated for the camera, it's small, repetitive, almost absent-minded. And because his face and posture are giving away almost nothing, those hands become the only visible place where tension is allowed to exist. That's the first observation worth sitting with. In a scene this restrained, movement doesn't disappear, it just relocates. The face tells its own version of the same story, but slower. Early in the footage, his gaze drifts rather than fixes. He looks forward, then slightly upward, then away, never settling anywhere for long. His eyelids lower briefly and lift again. None of this reads as dramatic. It reads as someone thinking, processing, holding something back before deciding whether to let it show. Here's where it gets more interesting. As the camera pushes closer, the smaller details start to carry more weight than they would in a wider shot. His lips tighten slightly. His jaw sets. Nothing about this is exaggerated, there's no wide-eyed shock, no visible collapse of composure. But tight framing does something specific to acting. It turns a millimeter of movement into information. A performance built for a wide shot would need a bigger gesture to register at all. A performance built for this kind of close-up doesn't have that luxury, or that excuse. It's worth pausing here on the camera itself, because the framing isn't a neutral background choice, it's doing half the emotional work. The repeated movement between his face, his hands, and his upper body is a deliberate editorial rhythm. Each cut back to the hands resets the viewer's attention on where tension is accumulating. Each cut to the face checks whether the tension has surfaced yet. This back-and-forth pattern is what trains the eye to notice deviation in the first place. Without it, the sleeve gesture that follows would likely register as nothing more than an actor adjusting his position. And that brings us to the moment that actually reorganizes everything that came before it. He raises his arm. His sleeve moves toward his face, close to the eyes, and then lowers again. On its own, described in a single sentence, that's nothing. People touch their faces constantly, in every kind of scene, for 100 ordinary reasons. In a wide shot, this motion would likely pass without anyone registering it as meaningful at all. But this isn't a wide shot. It's a close, controlled frame that has spent the entire scene training the viewer to notice small deviations from stillness. So when the one big physical interruption finally happens, it doesn't read as incidental. It reads as the scene's hinge point, the one moment the body breaks its own rule of restraint. What happens immediately after is where the emotional payoff actually lands. His eyes appear visibly wetter. There's a glistening on the cheek, caught clearly because the camera is close enough to register it. But even here, the reaction doesn't escalate into something bigger. There's no audible break, no dramatic collapse of the face. The emotion stays quiet. It's communicated almost entirely through the physical evidence around the eyes rather than through any obvious expressive shift. This is worth pausing on, because it's not the default choice for an emotional beat. A more theatrical version of this scene could have used a bigger reaction, visible shaking, a louder breath, a more emphatic change in posture. Instead, the performance keeps its foundation of stillness intact, even at its most emotionally loaded moment. The restraint doesn't disappear when the emotion arrives. It stays, and the emotion has to fit inside it. There's a second smaller pattern worth noting alongside this, the repeated looking away. His head turns slightly, his eyes lower, and then he returns to the original direction. It happens more than once, and each repetition is small enough that a wide shot would likely erase it entirely. In this framing, it becomes part of the emotional architecture, a character who is visibly composed on the surface while showing signs of internal pressure through the eyes. None of this happens in isolation. That's the part that makes the footage effective rather than just noticeable. The hands move more than once. The gaze shifts more than once. The face tightens gradually rather than all at once. The camera keeps returning to close framing rather than cutting away. It's the accumulation of small, repeated details, not one isolated gesture, that builds toward the moment where the arm rises to the face. This is also worth connecting to something broader about how this kind of footage tends to travel online. Clips like this rarely go viral because of plot or dialogue. Most viewers watching a short clip have no surrounding context at all. What they respond to is exactly this kind of concentrated, visible detail, a small physical moment that reads clearly even without knowing anything about the character or the story around it. In this specific case, the emotional information is entirely self-contained in the performance itself, which is likely part of why a clip like this can circulate independently of the project it comes from. Which is what makes that single gesture worth returning to one more time. It isn't just an interruption. It's the structural pivot the entire scene has been quietly building toward. Everything before it establishes a baseline of controlled stillness. Everything after it shows what happens once that stillness is broken, even briefly. The gesture doesn't need dialogue, a wider context, or an explained backstory to register. The framing alone does the work. This also says something about why close, restrained acting can be more demanding than it looks. In a wide shot, an actor has room to use the whole body to signal an emotional shift. In a tight frame like this one, that option doesn't exist. A change in gaze direction, a slight tightening around the mouth, a single raised sleeve, these become the entire vocabulary available. There's less room to hide, and less room for exaggeration to cover for a moment that doesn't land. The formal costume plays a quiet role in this too. The black suit, the white shirt, the bow tie, all of it reinforces a sense of control and composure. And the more composed the surface appears, the more visible the smallest crack in that composure becomes. It's a kind of visual contrast that doesn't require any commentary to work. The audience feels it simply by watching the gap between the stillness of the clothing and posture and the small emotional evidence building around the eyes. By the end of the clip, nothing large has technically happened. No one has moved far. No dramatic scene has unfolded in a conventional sense. And yet the accumulation of small, deliberate details, the restless hands, the shifting gaze, the tightening jaw, and finally the uninterrupted stillness of the raised sleeve adds up to something that feels far more complete than the sum of its parts. That's ultimately what makes this specific piece of footage worth studying rather than just watching. Less than 2 seconds of movement, a single gesture, framed tightly enough to matter, ends up carrying the emotional weight that a much longer, more visibly dramatic scene would normally need to build. If you're the kind of viewer who likes looking twice at moments other coverage scrolls past, that's exactly the kind of thing we dig into here. Subscribe if you want analysis, not just clips.